It's Friday, and this is our blab that we do after each of our earlier shows in the evening. Today, we had the pleasure of talking with CHRISTIANE Pelmas, who is a sex therapist, and it was an absolute delight to talk to. And she gave me all kinds of compliments. And Hans, you've already heard me say this already, but and of course, I just love to hear that stuff, you know. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we wanted to continue talking. She wasn't able to join us. She had other commitments, but we thought we might talk about sexuality throughout the levels of development.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if Hans is still here. It is dark, or we are again out. I don't know. Hans, if you hear me, I have made you a host in case we fall out, but I think now you are gone. Anyway, who else wants to come in? Please come in. Can you see us, Hans? Oh, your video disappeared. Go out and come in again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have interrupted you. We wanted to talk about what sexuality means in the levels of our development, of human development as cultures, and also maybe personal is not so much. No?
That's not really necessary.
We will see.
We
will see. Oh,
it's very personal, of course. Okay. Yes, but anyway, so Hans is here, and he will correct any integral fallacies that we make.
You need to know who doesn't know us. We are integral practitioners. This means we like integral theory because it gives us a roadmap of reality. Oh, Hendrik is coming too. This is fine. Right. Gives us a roadmap of reality, and we can orient ourselves easier to understand easier what things are going on. And with both these guys, we have lately in December talked about the refugees in Europe. It was a very interesting talk, and you could scroll down on the replay and watch it.
And by now, all the world has heard what they told us that night.
Yes. We have it also on our Wisdom Factory YouTube channel, a little bit worked on. I'm learning to do videos. Anyway, welcome you too, and today we talk about sexuality. And the idea was, as we don't have CHRISTIANE here, she said she couldn't make it, to talk about the levels of development and how sexuality is seen and lived in these levels. Mm-hmm. Is it okay with you?
It's totally okay with me, but I feel more in a learning position than in a teaching one, because when I had never heard of the erotic intelligence as a line, and so I would have been curious to ask that question. What does that mean? How does it, that kind of development move up?
Well, I think that's a developmental question, really. We, at our advanced stages, we probably have a different idea of how we understand eroticism and how it is expressed in our lives. And we can probably just kind of back engineer it down down the scale, because it begins, I think, is quite simply, it's a primal urge. In other places, CHRISTIANE has said there are three basic ways to understand the world: birth, sex, and death. And that's all you need. Everything is included in all of that, which puts it sets sex at a very exalted position compared to where it normally sits in our conventional view of what's important. Not in our teenage view of what's important, when it is all important, but sort of the societal level of controlled eroticism. And in our earliest stages of humanity, I would think that probably sex was what you did if you had enough to eat, No,
even if you didn't have enough to eat.
You could still do sex, that's true. I'm thinking of our cats, Yeah, And I think sexuality is not much different at the base stage, the most primitive stage. And
can I interrupt you? We want to say,
please.
We don't know it either. We invite you to collaborate, to find, let's say, arguments, to find the ways to get hold of it in the different stages. You know, Christiane, I did. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
What I've heard is that it's an intelligence line, like Christiane is, and you guys are into. I heard something about David Data and Ken Wilber's discussion when they talked about this, and they had it. I wonder why sometimes it's a very central line and sometimes it's not a central line for self-identity, because as Christiane was telling us, it seemed to be a very central line, and Freud and everyone else seems to be very sure that it's a central line. So I wonder why it's left out in some discussions and not in others.
Wait a minute, there is a question, and I just want to answer shortly this question from Kelly Kinder Foster, and I can bring it up. And this says, do you have a great sexual relationship now at your age? Yes. I can say that.
All right, now back to theory. Well, we got.
Oh, you must say yes too. Otherwise, it's only me.
Oh, your sexual life with me?
Sure. He asked us, and in our age, we are old, no? We are not as young as these guys. We are old. And normally people, normally people think when you are old, sexuality is, We had it with your daughter. When we talked openly about sexuality, she was sort of, this should be only for young people.
Well, it's always a test. Imagine you.
I think that's not. I think maybe that's not. Sometimes not so much only about age, but I think we are often very uncomfortable around the sexuality of our parents. Like, I think I don't have a problem at all imagining older people having sex, but I don't know how comfortable I would be talking to my parents about their sexuality, or if I even would like to do so.
Or they with you. Yeah. Okay. And I think, why it's not a line of development in all these various schema that we see, it's probably because we're brand new at making these schemas,
Yes.
And we haven't really settled on an agreed upon number of lines of development, among other things. And what's important and what's not important is still...
I would also say it might be because sexuality is always taboo. And so it is still somewhere there. If we don't have to handle it better, it is because nobody really knows what to say about it.
We want to keep pushing it out of the center.
Yeah, and we think it is all private stuff. And when you have a problem with sexuality, better you don't say it because, somebody could think you are boo.
But
so it is so out of the view.
But it seems like when you push it out, it remains a shadow, and it remains maybe more at a primitive stage rather than gets a chance to flourish and evolve.
Yeah, I'm sure it does for many people, and I think of my own life and how limited my understanding of sexuality was until recently, of course. But anyway, who helped it grow? What institution or what social knowledge got transmitted that was really helpful and positive? You fall back on stereotypes and talking with your friends who have no more experience than you, and So it's a stunted line, I should say, and that's probably why it's not included.
I think we are lacking the vocabulary. We haven't learned to talk about it, so we're a bit lost for words. Even if we grow beyond this kind of shameful thing, I wonder if also it depends. Sexuality can mean maybe many different things. I mean, I think the way we talk about in an integral context as like a line, then it's more than just this physical thing. It's maybe this creative charge between individuals that can move in many ways and directions. I think often when we talk about sex, we are talking more about an early level of development.
You are muted. I cannot hear you.
I am muted?
Now it's okay.
I didn't touch anything. So I think it depends on how we talk about it. I think if we think of the levels of development and then sexuality, I don't know where it awakens, maybe on magenta or red, like one of the early levels. And then what seems to happen, I'm at the moment doing also with Ken Wilber this full spectrum mindfulness course. And there it shows that always on all the different levels of development, we can develop either an addiction or an allergy. And I think with sexuality, that happens a lot because we can be totally obsessed about sex and everything is about sex in the physical, hormonal sense. Or it's always kind of yucky and, that dirty little sex thing. So sometimes there is more transcendence, sometimes there's more inclusion, or one of the two something can go wrong with either, if we look at it in that sense.
I think so too.
It's absolutely amazing.
But I also think that maybe a lot of the talk in the culture is in the right-hand quadrant, upper right-hand quadrant. So it's like either it's the pornography, that's the right-hand quadrant, or it's like sex education. It's also the right-hand upper quadrant, with much of the behavior with the genitals touching this and that, instead of there's no inner experience and emotions and the things that the Christiana was telling us about, and which resonates more with every person's experience, I guess.
So from that right-hand view, sex is all about procreation and ejaculation and orgasm and strictly the physical stuff. And it, of course, is a way it seems to begin when we're first aware of sexuality. Is we're not terribly concerned about relationships, about the inner part. We're barely aware of it. We're just driven by the chemistry of it, and that's how most families get started. And so there's obvious purpose to it, but we don't get interested in who that partner really is until much later in our development.
We had it last week with Martin, falling in love with someone good for you, that when you focus only on this feeling of being in love, then you often don't even see the partner, and you don't even create a relationship with this person, but with what you think that person is. And I think with sexuality is very much the same.
And I'm wondering if that's the next stage. Is that what we get in magenta, in a tribal society where people just have these roles that they play? And you could almost be matched up with anyone, and as a tribal person, you're no one by yourself. You have to be in relationship with the tribe. And so what the tribe prescribes is what you experience, And maybe then we can start I don't know. Is that being concerned with the relationship, or is that still later? You know, the magenta kind of.
This is the I think sexuality in magenta is not really a topic because it's just there. You just do it.
It's more like ritualistic, I guess.
A ritual.
There are a lot of rituals of different kinds, and men and women can't be with each other at certain times of the day or year, or everything is much voodoo, and you are sort of the individual is in the group and has nothing to say in the group, in the tribal stage.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that doesn't mean that people can't have very tender and affectionate feelings for one another.
That's true.
In that context. Yeah. But it's ritual. So much of magenta life is ritual.
Yeah. But it's ritualistic in different respects than at the amber stage, where there are a lot of rituals as well. But there are more passion in the magenta stage than in the amber stage,
and I think the
much more love.
And I think the amber stage is when most of the suppression kicks in as well. Sex becomes something very suspicious and something too wild and uncontrollable and all this, so it needs to really be controlled.
Absolutely.
Well, after the red stage, that's understandable.
Yeah, because in the red stage, for me, sexuality is mainly used for power and submission. And for women, it's a horrible time, I guess.
No, it's but not women, good for men,
no, not good for men either. But the rape, I think it's a normal thing in red, which we see more or less still in the world happen. I mean, women try to use their power in a different way, but when it is only about physical power, normally women don't make it, because normally we are still physically not as strong. We are psychologically strong. There have been researches which show that women can, for instance, in the case of rape, they can dissociate from the body. That's what happens to the body, and then they sort of keep their nucleus, their core being somehow intact. Not completely. It must be horrible. Unfortunately, I've never lived that, but we have a way to, let's say, internally defend us against, but externally not. And so it was so important that the blue stage came, which said to, what, you cannot just rape your women. You have to be in a relationship, which there's marriage, and there are certain rules, and you can do. They have a little bit exaggerated with the rules, I would say, but it was probably.
But it's a problem with the blue stage, amber, because very late it was not considered rape in the blue stage when men raped their wives inside the marriage.
The duty,
So that was something that was considered in the late 1900s. That's a very problematic issue of the blue stage that is still with us to this day. And also there's a problem with the patriarchy and the system, how that affects all the development possibilities with the male and female archetypes. So I don't know, what do you guys say about that?
Well, I should think then that female dissociation was a popular feature even in the blue stage.
Yeah.
Perhaps even beyond. I think.
But in the blue stage, we had security.
Yeah.
In the red stage, we sort of have no security. We are chased. you know, and we have to see how to survive in some way, because the powerful man, we try to be the mate of the powerful man, you know, but not because we loved him or something, but because this gave us safety to even against the other man. So we probably wouldn't be raped, because if we were, the other one would have wrong. So it was a question of safety in red. And in blue, we had a different safety. We had a guaranteed safety. When we are inside the marriage, the only one who can rape us is the husband, and all the others for law.
By law.
Were then, you know,
prohibited,
put it in prison or something, more or less. It still doesn't happen always, but
I also say, I mean, this is the positive side of move into blue, but on the negative hand, I think the fun of it also went down the drain. You were not anymore supposed to have sex to enjoy yourself. It was basically to fulfill a certain role, to procreate, to make babies for the nation, for God, for whomever. I mean, it was not so much about having fun.
It was a sacrilege to have fun. You shouldn't, you know, and that's where things began, where we still are suffering from, because people have so much trouble to talk about sexuality.
And I think that's probably where feminine mutilation began too, probably.
I don't know.
So there wasn't any pleasure in it.
So what about the orange stage of sexuality? How does sex look like in the orange world?
I can do what I want. I can use my partner.
There's some degree of participation roles, I'd say, to some degree, growing beyond the expected roles of the in-group. There's some liberation going on that front, definitely.
Yeah.
Able to explore possibilities, a certain tolerance for what would earlier be considered aberrant sexual proclivities, you know, not to be talked about much, but tolerated, you know, quietly, in the closet, you know.
While in blue, not.
No,
in blue, homosexuality, it's against God, or I don't know what.
No, even I think in orange, homosexuality is not yet fully embraced. That's more.
No. That's green.
But it's tolerated. But it's tolerated as something we don't talk about. It is there, okay, but we leave it there somewhere hidden. They can do what they want. But don't bother me with that.
Well, orange is not known for transparency. No.
But I do guess it was more okay with multiple partners. With orange, like you know.
I remember the wife swapping stage in the 60s. You know,
he did that. Imagine that. Look at him. He did.
It was wonderful. It was great. But let's remember, it was wife swapping. It wasn't husband swapping.
Okay.
So it was still patriarchy in that respect.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Certainly.
And also, I think it's okay, kind of what you do behind closed doors in orange. Like, as long as you don't run around on the street and want to have rights and want to have other people to care and accept and respect you, then it's fine. I mean, you still see that. I mean, me as a homosexual, that's what I kind of still get. Like, kind of the orange enlightened people. It's okay. I can do what I like, and I have a right to exist and all that. But just don't talk too much about it. Don't ask for too much. That really changes with green. Then everybody is included, and we want to care about the minorities, and we want to see the diversity and playing around with different roles, and that things become a bit more explorative and.
But in orange it begins that we don't necessarily be married anymore.
That's true.
To have sex, you know, we can try it out, and we don't. I mean, I was 19 when I married, because I felt I had sex before with my husband, and I felt this is not right. I couldn't do it, you know, and so I went into a marriage with was a disaster in many ways. It took me 12 years to come out of it and to grow into orange from this very strong blue. You have to do this, and a wife is this, and this, and this, and this, you know, into exploring my life.
Yeah. What a trail we leave behind us, huh?
Yeah, they start at a different level already. They start much more orange to green. You know, we started very much in deep blue. Blue.
Well, it always depends.
Tough journey.
Where the culture is at. You know? It's like they say, if you are born into a culture, the culture kind of pulls you up to the current center of gravity. If you then want to move beyond it, it becomes difficult because it also pulls you down to the current center of gravity. So if the culture already is orange-green, then it makes it rather easy for people to get to that level, you know?
Yeah, but beyond is tougher.
Beyond is tougher.
Oops.
But you know what? We've come through up through all these stages, but of course, we're past green. All of us.
Let's first talk green. Green is this color here.
Yeah, but green was started, I think, with the 60s. So what do you think, is your experience of the 60s?
Well, what I can say with some certainty is that Heidi is the first partner I've had who I really deeply recognize her interior, you know, and she wasn't just a placeholder. You know, I need a partner. Okay, you'll do. Yeah, you know, it was a real interest in who she was that attracted me to her. And so this, I think, is really quite recent in development, at least
your
for me.
Personally,
yeah.
But I think it is also what Hendrik said before. I think it's normal psychology that when we are so much oppressed and then we think we are free when we do the complete opposite.
Yeah.
But we are still even maybe more bound to this thing which we are opposing. So until we really get free of it, we cannot just bounce from one side to the other and back and forth, you know. We really have to go deep into it. And what we are doing here now is sort of part of it, no? To talk openly about it and try to bring sexuality into a something completely normal, which is nothing against and nothing for it, you know. I mean, for instance, when I have some homosexual friends, and when they are so defining themselves about their homosexuality, there's nothing to define about your sexuality. There's nothing to define heterosexuality. Sexuality is what is part of your life, and basta, you know. When we have to define ourselves in some sexual way, we have not yet really
a free sex. We don't have a free sexuality. We haven't
embraced it yet completely as a human condition and a human way of or tool of expressing ourselves. You know what I mean? It's nothing against you or somebody else.
I understand.
It's just,
I mean, I can see it in myself that was a bit like a developmental arc. Like, I mean, I think when I was in my early 20s and I first embraced being gay, like it seemed to at that time it was like the main feature of my personality. I was all about being gay, and I was like wanted to tell everybody about it, and I was obsessed with it. Like, I mean, no matter what city I visited, the first thing I was looking up, where is a gay bar here, and all this. So, and all my friends were heterosexuals at that time, and everybody was so annoyed with me. But I learned to relax about it. So now, of course, it has become one of many aspects of it. Like in the big mosaic, it's one of the many things.
Well, I don't know if you meant this, but you said my friends were all heterosexual. You know, and were your gay friends or your gay acquaintances friends, or were they just partners?
Oh no, I mean about my friends. Like they
Oh, okay.
I hope,
Yeah.
No,
that some of my sexual partners were gay too.
That would help.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I think when we are young and sexuality takes us, so it takes wherever, if you are hetero, homo, or whatever, it takes such a big part of our lives, you know. It is so important, and Christiane has talked about it in the show before. And then when we grow a little older and this is not so new anymore, then we can have a bit more, I don't want to say distance, but more discernment about it, or not. We are not so inside anymore, you know. We are not so taken and victim of this drive,
Possessed by
of the erotic impulse.
Yes.
You know, we and I don't know if you know the teaching of Andrew Cohen.
Yeah.
He talks about the sexual impulse and the creative impulse, and then the spiritual impulse as levels of development. It seems to me quite intelligent viewpoint, as many of his teachings are, but not. Okay, that's
and go on something else. Yeah. That's too bad.
I think it's with all the drives. It's like, you know, the more.
Oh,
No, I don't hear you.
Mute.
I'm not muted. I think it must be.
I hear you.
Okay.
Well, don't turn your head to the side then.
It can be our internet. This is so bad
because Hans
today.
can't hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's with all these primal drives and everything that goes on in our psychology. Is it can either have us, that's when we are still more unconscious, and the more conscious we grow, it's more something that we have. Like, I mean, sexuality is happening within me, and I don't have to deny it. I don't have to run amok with it. But
You own it.
I own it, but I must say, like Jeff Saltzman always says, on a good day.
On a good day, that's good.
You know, I mean, I do crazy things as well every once in a while, and I'm still learning and growing.
That's great.
Well, of course we are. We all are. You know. So what does it mean now that we are coming into another level? You know, beyond green, you know, so what do we do with all of this history that we have inside us, you know, and what do we do with the culture that has all of those energies still being expressed in one way or another, and parts of the world where very primitive kinds of sexuality are still very much in charge of people.
I think we see that with the discussion in Köln, and there's this discussion in Stockholm, vividness, and also I think we have to embrace the wholeness of all our levels, and don't get stuck in allergies. So I think there's a lot of shadow elements to work with, you know, when we have this more, when we have more consciousness. So that's one way to work with.
This is one thing. Yeah. And we were talking before, I think, Hans, you said that we, emotional intelligence, we have learned a little bit about it in the 70s, that this exists, because until then we thought it's only IQ, no? And now even erotic intelligence. And I think for erotic intelligence, we need to have emotional intelligence, to develop emotional intelligence. And there are already quite a few of tools or practices to do that, you know. And then from there, I don't know exactly what Christiane is offering. I haven't done any course with her. I've only heard some talks, and I liked what she says, and also her personality, which is very natural in my opinion. So I invited her to the show. But I know that there are many ways, and I'm teaching also something like I learned it at Feminine Power, the empowerment of yourself by getting emotional intelligence, by not being praised and taken by the emotions, and find out the roots of the emotions, and then sort of calm them in a way so that you don't have to put them over over your partner, you know. And when I did this for myself, I was really astonished how little I really was able to know where these emotions come from. They just came, and I thought it is like this. And I didn't realize that it didn't have to do with my partner or with a friend or whatever. They are only the triggers. But the emotions have to do with you and your structures, your patterns. And these patterns, when Hendrik talked about the shadow, these patterns we have to recognize and we have to transform. And this, then we can get freedom. And I think this is sort of hand in hand with erotic intelligence. If we try only erotic intelligence without emotional intelligence, how can that work? I mean, it's my idea. I'm talking now out of the, you say, out of the head.
I don't, they have to go together. You know, there's definite association. Well, integral theory does talk about groups of lines that are associated. You know, so it'd be difficult to have erotic intelligence without emotional intelligence, but and also somatic intelligence. You know, lots of things.
One other thing that I'm thinking of is that always the integral perspective, what it always does is also looking back at the other levels and finding the beauty or adequacy in those as well. So I think looking back at the different manifestations of the erotic intelligence or of sexuality on the previous levels, there is something beautiful to be found on each and every one of those levels. With some, it might take a bit more fantasy to see it. But for example, I think if I look like after the green, when everything is put into question, this whole kind of sacred union between two individuals, which was so strong on the amber level, I think, even though I personally, I don't want to go into that now, but I'm a bit suspicious about monogamy in my own life, but to reconnect with the sacred idea of having a commitment to one person, and there is something really beautiful and about that. And
to concentrate the energy, or
to concentrate the energy, for example. Also, I think people working with Tantra would probably understand more about that as well. But there was a very interesting conversation with Jeff Saltzman. I'm really delighted that he's going to be on your series too. In one of his daily Evolver episodes, he actually, and I was really surprised, talked about, and I think it was around that book, that 50 Shades of Grey or something, about kind of sadomasochism, BDSM, sexual kink play and all that. And
Robin Reinach.
We wanted to have her too for this session, but she answered too late. We will do an after session with her.
But what he pointed out to, or she as well, basically to kind of look at these kind of sexual role plays, and not everybody is into them and there's no need to, but for an integral person, it can be like a playground where you can, in a safe and healthy way, live these the redness of sex, dominance, submission, in a way where nobody is hurt, and it's almost like a playground for adults, you know, where you can kind of live your inner redness. And so whatever, I mean, not everybody has to be into that, but I think it's so great as integralists more and more options become open to us to go and explore, not only upwards, but also, like you said before, Mark, as well, to also explore the previous stages that are still and always will be within us, you know. So exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And when we finally arrive here, we don't have to be in a certain way as our worldview is in that time, you know. In Orange, we don't have to go to bed every night with somebody else anymore because it's tiresome. You know?
That's a lot of energy. Really.
Yeah, you know, when I was married first time and then I had a lover for 5 years. And first I tried to make it openly and it didn't work at all. And then, you know, always to find the excuses and remember what excuse you had. I after that, I swore to myself, I said, I don't do that ever more again because it's so tiresome. You have to remember everything and then, then you say the wrong thing and then you have to find something else and then the next day you have forgotten also that. So the best thing is the truth. And so for me, it was very clear from that time on, when I'm in a relationship, then I'm only with this person because it's too difficult to manage several people when they are not agreeing. And I never had really agreement with the relative partners. So.
Well, it's hard to be a winner at Orange.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I appreciate that I have done these things and I have learned and I don't have to do it anymore. And when we were in Green, the same thing, you know, with the freedom and everything. And then this is fine. It's fine, but I don't have to define myself anymore in this way. What I think I have not really lived is the red thing in regard to sexuality, because it was never really allowed. It was always...
Well, there's a club in New York City.
Yeah, exactly.
For the role play.
I don't go to New York for that.
That's a very interesting idea that you announced, because the red is very repressed later stages, because there's so much experience of that the red creates chaos and havoc for everyone. Well, for everyone actually. So
everyone.
Unless it's not harnessed, embraced, and included in a way, it's gonna create chaos. So
yeah.
I wanted to go back to red again because I think it expresses this egocentric warrior state, which we call red in spiral dynamics and also in integral theory. Yeah, I think it's different for men and women. Men were allowed to be, you know, a red warrior, and women, when they were in regard of sexuality, they were all a prostitute,
expelled.
Schlampe.
Prostitute.
But or somebody who is not recognized. When you as a woman express your sexual desires openly, most men would still today, I would say, I don't think they are very happy about it. I don't know. Maybe some sort of, I don't know. Just a question.
Try it with me. Try it.
They will get caught up in the erection problem. Are they functioned out?
Yeah, maybe because you feel the pressure. You want to be still dominant in some way and decide yourself. And when somebody else wants to decide, oops, and now, and then the body says, oh.
This is the great advantage that we gay men have, you know, because we can kind of, I think, have an easier time accessing that redness in our sexuality, because this whole issue of male, female, power, imbalance, feminism, all these things, they're simply not part of the equation. Suddenly there's just two men, and I think it's easier to access that redness then. It's like it's not this
I would suspect that there's more fluidity in a relationship between two men than there might be between a man and a woman.
There can be, and it's just, but it's just not. You cannot just take. There's no role model really, so you kind of are more prone to just experiment. I think in many gay male or gay female relationships, there is still a strong polarity. That one would be more the yin energy one, and the other more the yang. Or sometimes it's a bit more equal. It happens in all sorts of variations, but there seems to be more of a permission to just experiment with that. I think in straight relationships, it's always clear who has to play what role, unfortunately, until a certain stage in development where people also start being a bit more, question those roles a bit more.
Playful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm looking forward to the session with Jeff and Kelly as gay and lesbian. And I really would like to know more about that.
Yeah. That's one way. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Okay.
We've been here for an hour.
I wanted to ask what it is when we finally go into integral. What your ideas are.
Oh, that's what we've been talking about.
Yeah, no, it just is a final word. What will expect us in the future when we are already integral? And then what comes next?
Oh, let me go first.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a vision of sexuality not being such a strict category of behavior, but rather a kind of part of a general eroticism that we can express at Yellow, which we didn't know how to do before. Because I think there is an eroticism that can arise at any moment, in any activity.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of, it swells you up, it feels good. There's energy, there's enthusiasm, there's a curiosity, and you don't have to, put things into the categories that we once had to. And that's what I'm looking forward to in the development of sexuality, spreading it out, spreading those feelings, those approaches, that experimentation and curiosity into more and more areas. Yeah. That's all I want. That's all.
Great.
Humble.
We have enough time for that.
That's great. What I would add to that also, I think it's what I think said before, that I think a lot of digging down and going back and re-embracing everything that came before. I think this will be a lifelong process, because we all tend to always look upwards towards integral and higher, but there's so much stuff along the way that we can still dive back and reintegrate that and embrace it more. And I also think from an integral and higher way, still there will be endless variations and unique expressions of how we live our sexuality. I think some people will re-embrace conscious monogamy. Other people might live consciously polyamorous. There will be all sorts of expressions happening. I mean, I think the universe is a big place. So I don't see like a clear direction or how we integral people are going to live our sexuality. There's going to be much variety, and
I agree. Yeah. I think also I would like to add that it's going to be much more of a spiritual quest, like sex and spirituality has for such a long time been, except in the tantric tradition, it's been separate. But now I think everything is gonna come together, and be more of a eminent energy from people. So in the connection with one another. So instead of just two people are connecting in the green level, like all emotions, but there's no deeper energy or spiritual energy there. So I think this spiritual dimension is going to be important as well.
Yeah.
More integration, more diversity at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yeah.
And I have still to say something.
Yes, you do. Mm-hmm.
I imagine, and also for my personal life, but generally, that we get a more relaxed relationship to sexuality, and have it, embrace it in our lives, and not do these departmentalizations. For instance, I had a very good friend, a female friend. I didn't have sex with her, but we touched each other, and this for me is also sort of sexuality, and we don't have to be ashamed about that, so that we embrace a much larger vision that sexuality is not only fucking, that we as you said, that the eroticism is the whole life, but it's not concentrated on having orgasms necessarily, but it is just our way of embracing life, and even have a feeling towards a tree or an animal or something without wanting to fight them,
Don't have to fuck them, don't have to kill them, neither one.
So that it is not a topic, it's just, it's the most normal thing, like eating, like you don't think so much about that you have to eat now. I'm hungry. Yeah, okay, I will eat. But if I have to think all the time about eating, then there is something wrong with me, or I'm obese, or I have how do you say, dependency, addiction, or something like this. That it comes out of addiction and out of, what was the other polarity?
Allergy.
That we are really embracing it and come into something which we can talk about, but which doesn't really make a big deal out of it.
A big deal.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Greg, how open is the issue with sexuality? What do you mean? I don't know what he means with that. He cannot come in. So we might have another talk about it, and if you like to. We can sporadic, or also another Friday, but now all the Fridays are sort of booked by our pre-shows. We are doing a show in the Wisdom Factory, I tell it to Greg, and afterwards we meet in a blab. And today the show was about sexuality and relationships. So we met here in the blab, and unfortunately we lost Henry. But
Whoa.
Okay,
Yeah.
things happen.
Yeah.
So I say goodbye to you, Hans. Really enjoyed that you were here with us.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Next time.
Really.
Bye-bye.
Next time, please. Yes.
Bye-bye.